Today, I flew to the Chicago airport to record this podcast with our guest, who is going to talk about his multi-million-dollar exit on Amazon, but then how he lost over $500,000 in a baseball card Ponzi scheme. Oh, and by the way, he's the person who first introduced me to Helium 10 9 years ago. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Serious Sellers Podcast by Helium 10. I'm your host, Bradley Sutton, and this is the show that's a completely BS-free, organic conversation about serious strategies for serious sellers of any level in the e-commerce world. All right, and now I am here in Chicago. Just landed, was stuck on the plane for 40 minutes, went to the wrong terminal, but Mitul here found me. I came here because this is where Mitul's at. He's been on the podcast before, and I think it was like 2021 actually was the last time you were on the podcast. 2021, 2022, maybe towards the end of COVID there. But I pretty much forgot everything we talked about. And we have so many new listeners too. I want to pretend like this is the first time you're on the podcast here. So we are here in Chicago, Illinois, at the Chicago airport. Is this area where you were born and raised?
Yes. Yeah, I was born in Chicago, in the city. I grew up in the suburbs. And I still live here.
Where did you go to school at for university?
Northern Illinois University.
What was your major over there?
Computer science.
Computer science. And did you get into that after graduation?
I did. I was a programmer for 10 years. I worked at a corporate job before Amazon. And yeah.
Okay. And what brought you or what put you on the radar for e-commerce?
So a friend of mine actually followed Ryan Moran. And he got into Amazon. And so I was just kind of following his journey. And then he was really successful. I think he launched Yacon syrup, if you remember that. And so I was like, you got to show me what you're doing. And so he kind of helped me get going. I started in supplements, phytoceramides, and failed miserably.
What year are we talking about now?
This is 2014.
2014. Okay.
So 2014, I started, launched my brand, thought I was going to become a millionaire investing $1,000. Learned the hard way that that's not how it works. Even back then, and failed miserably, but I learned a lot. That's when I learned about Ezra, Firestone, learned about Facebook marketing, landing pages, Amazon BBC, everything, right? And so I pivoted at the end of the year. I launched a new brand, Run Forever Sports, in January of 2015, and kind of applied everything I learned to it, and it took off. And I built that over 5 years.
Was that like, maybe I'm completely confusing you, but did you have like a sock brand or something like a...
Yeah, compression socks, calf sleeves, plantar fasciitis sleeves, elbow, all that kind of stuff.
And what was your, for those brands, the ones that you started in the mid 2010s, what was your best year of gross sales, and approximately how much was it?
2.5 million and that's when I sold.
So you exited that brand.
Yeah, in 2020.
And that was kind of like maybe around the time maybe we did the podcast like a year later or something. So you're in a transitional period. But now in the last 6 years, you've gone through a lot. Some highs, but a lot of lows. And so I remember like bits and pieces. We were in like a Facebook Messenger group about sports cards, which we can talk about too. But you were talking about some like crazy like legal issues, and it sounded like you were about to get the mafia involved. I don't know what the heck was going on. But so can you tell me what in the world happened after 2020? You exited the brand, and somehow you lost a lot of money, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So. All right, so I exited the brand. I sold to D1 Brands. They were an aggregator at the time. I actually went and worked for them. I worked for them for about 5 months, kind of got an inside scoop on aggregator world. And then in May of 2022, we parted ways.
Were you working for them like on your brand or just on their portfolio of stuff?
Oh, so yeah. So I was an associate director. I had 4 brands. Mine was not one of them. Thankfully, I wouldn't have done it. And so then after I left, so I was in the hobby. Obviously, we've talked a lot about sports cars and things like that. And so that started back in 2019. And during that time, I would do things where, we would like buy cases of product and we'd hold it and then we'd sell it later. And I was just doing it here and there. And I was always got a good return. And so after that, and I built up a pretty good network in the sports card world. And so after I left, I was like, oh, maybe I could become a dealer. And so basically buying cases of product and then holding it and selling it to breakers, people who basically open it up on Facebook. Now it's like Whatnot and TikTok. And I mean, everyone, you could break anywhere nowadays. And so got hooked up with the wrong person. Did my due diligence. He had lots of references. There were a lot of people who were buying from him. And so I started working with him and everything was great.
What were you doing exactly with him?
Yeah. So I was buying product from him. So he was able to get product, which he claimed was from his card shop, which was false, obviously, now that I know that. But he was able to get it. We were able to buy it. And it wasn't even like a too good to be good, true type of thing. It wasn't like he was selling us something that's $10,000 for $5,000. Right. It was just that he had availability. We were able to get it. And the prices were going up so fast that you could hold it for 2, 3, 4 weeks and you'd still make a good return. And so started buying from him, getting product. It was working. I started buying more and more and more. And then I had a big customer who placed a huge order to the tune of like $500,000 and placed that order with him, sent him money, which was stupid. I should have known better. But again, like he gave me no reason to not trust him. It wasn't like we were doing $500 deals and then I had this. It was, we were doing $50,000, $60,000 deals. So it wasn't abnormal. But long story short, it was kind of a Ponzi scheme. He was kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. And he actually ended up gambling all of it away on Whatnot.
How do you gamble it away on Whatnot?
So he was buying into breaks and not hitting anything good. And what he was doing was also all the stuff that he would hit, he would sell to try. And I think he got caught up in it and was just trying to get that one win, which could pay back everyone, but just didn't happen. And I wasn't the only one. It was a total of about $1 million across 5, 6, 7, 8 people, something like that. I was the biggest. I was around $550,000 to $600,000.
So then you were on the hook to your customer for that $500,000. And what happened there? Like, did you have to come up? Did you have that much money, extra money to cover, or what happened?
Yeah. So, this is one of those things where I look back and I try and think through because it was done through the business, I could have easily claimed bankruptcy and be like, you're screwed. But in the hobby, your word is king. And so I would have basically been done. And I just figure, I gave him my word. I was like, look, I got you, like you're trusting me with this. And so I ended up cashing out investments, selling a lot of my collection to pay him back. I actually ended up getting a loan from my dad as well to help with that. And some help from the hobby community as well. There's one guy who really, really, really helped me out when he didn't have to at all. And he did. And it was basically because of my reputation. So this is where it's really important that your word is, your bond. Like if you're going to give your word on something, like follow through.
And did you end up getting anything back from the guy who stole?
So another wisdom that I've learned is if you're going to lose money to someone, make sure they have money, and they have assets so you can actually get something back. He had none. I was able to get his wife on about $30,000. So we were able to get that back, slowly over 3 years through, garnishing her wages. He doesn't have a job, so I currently cannot garnish anything. I do get his, tax returns. And so that's basically about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you might be thinking, why are we talking about this? Sports cards, 99% of you might not get into that, but the same principle applies, even thinking about dealing with a supplier, maybe that you haven't met and that you've done a lot of, transactions that were about $40,000. I mean, if you're doing transactions that work out great at $40,000 or $50,000, of course you're going to have trust in somebody like, oh yeah, this is legit, but don't make such a big like jump to something else without, like doing some more due diligence or covering your bases. It doesn't matter if we're talking sports cards, we're talking dealing with Alibaba suppliers, or we're talking about, a creditor, whatever the case is. You don't want to find out the hard way that things can happen. So then this kind of like, obviously put a big dent in your whole exit and your maybe retirement plans and stuff. So then what did you start doing for gainful employment? Did you just keep, find another supplier for cards, or did you get back on Amazon? You work for another company? What happened?
Yeah. So I was still getting paid from my exit. So that's kind of kept me afloat. So basically I got to the point where I had no savings. At that time I was getting paid from a note that I still held for. It was a 3-year note. So I still had like a year and a half to kind of skate by. And so in October of that year, they basically messaged me and said, "Hey, we can't pay you anymore for the next, because of Q4. Their claim was it was because of Q4, they have to buy inventory." Like I said, I was like, "Oh crap. Now I'm gonna get nothing." So that was when I was like, well, I got to find a job. And I started interviewing. I had to update my resume, which I hadn't done in like 15 years. And got on Indeed, started applying to all kinds of jobs. And I actually eventually ended up getting one with the company that I'm currently with now, Navira. They were global e-com partners at the time. We're kind of like a pattern where we partner with brands, we buy their inventory, and then we manage their Amazon and e-commerce platforms, so Target, Walmart.
So it's you buy the inventory and you sell it like on your accounts, not on you're not like running their accounts for them.
Right. We do have an agency set up, but I call it wholesale distribution is more the main part of our business. So I got a job with them. Thankfully, everything with D1 worked out. They paid me what they owed me. I still own about 16% of the business, which I sold back to them. And so I got paid out for all that, thankfully. Was able to pay my dad back. Put some money in the bank for savings. And then that started my journey with Navira. And at the same time, so before that, I still loved the hobby. It was like I had a lot of friends there. Obviously, you know that. I had a big collection still. And so I didn't want it to ruin my experience. And so I started thinking of like what I could do to come back, I guess, build back. I don't know. And so I kind of had this idea and started developing some products. And, it was not high demand. Like if you went on Amazon at the time, you'd be like, oh, this is like nothing, but I saw the potential because I was in the hobby. It was something that I knew very well, but not
something you saw that you could like improve on, that the current industry like was a little bit lacking what was selling, and you thought, hey, I can come in with a better product.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so I started doing that slowly. I did launch on Amazon, and it was funny because when you launch on Amazon, you need time and you need focus. And because of my job, I didn't really have that. And plus all the other stuff going on. And so it never got to a point where it was anything big. I also had another brand, a compression sock brand that I had from previous that I purchased that was off Amazon. And I ended up not really doing much there. It kind of just runs on autopilot on Shopify. And so started doing card shows. Selling cards, selling supplies, things like that, just on the side to kind of help with the recovery, I guess you could say. And then built up a pretty good network. When you're out, it's funny because obviously I did the Amazon thing where it sat behind a computer. My network consisted of other Amazon sellers that you meet virtually, right? Like you and I have known each other for 10 plus years now, and we've met twice in person, right? So, and then I go into this where it's like I see them monthly, and so you start building these connections and these networks, and like a lot of them are card shops, and so then they're like, hey, can you do this and can you do that? And you're like, yeah, sure, I can do that. It's easy, right? For us who are on Amazon, like, oh, you get a supplier in China, sure. So I've slowly built that up. It's nothing major, nothing huge. I've actually spent a lot of time focused on my career and making sure I do a good job there. Again, it's your word, your ethics. I don't know what you want to call it, but like, from that degree, because like I'm also a big believer in Christ, and so like, you don't want to steal time from people and stuff like that. So it's like, a lot of my focus has gone to my job. And this is kind of on the side thing I do on the weekends and at night. And so it's funny because when you contacted me, I actually started relooking at Amazon because I felt like I know Amazon, and we do a lot and we learn a lot because we manage 45 brands, and a lot of them are off Amazon. So you see a lot of unique things because, you come from the world of like, oh, PPC and I have to do this. And then you go to this world where they're running Facebook ads and they're in retail stores and they have actual big brands with a lot of brand equity. And it's just different. And so like, I was wondering if like some of my Amazon skills are kind of like, got a little weaker. And so I actually just hired GNO to kind of help because there's people obviously in MDS, there's people who know them. A good friend of mine started using them, and I was talking to him and I was like, all right, well, let me try. Let me see what they know. And so I started working with them, and I've just learned that they've got great processes, and they haven't taught me anything that I don't know. It's just that they have a process behind it, and it's like, oh, right, I should do that. And so now I've started learning again how to build a brand on Amazon.
Talk a little bit about that, because I think this is very different than your first go around. I would assume you didn't have some big passion about compression socks or something. You probably saw some indicators that there's demand and this is a good niche to get into. So which is what some people call the traditional way of starting on Amazon. Maybe not so much anymore, but especially back in the day. So contrast that where you start with the demand and then you're like, I don't know much about this, and now I'm going to launch this product, compared to now going almost with a passion product where maybe all the indicators weren't there. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of your business, or just like you're saying, card shows and stuff like that, is actually off Amazon. Contrast the two kind of experiences of starting the brand and like pros and cons, and what have you liked better?
Yeah. So you're right. Like when I started Run Forever, I was searching on Amazon. I looked for something that sort of interested me, right? It wasn't like I don't wear compression. I don't run. Like, that's the last thing that I want to do on my list.
Run forever, except not me.
Yes. Yeah.
Run never.
Yes. Run never. That's what I should have called it. And it was you're right. It was very different. I went on Amazon. I saw demand. I saw opportunity. And I was like, oh yeah. And then, I actually did some research. I went to retail stores. I bought products to try to see what people didn't like, and then went to Alibaba and ordered it and sent it to Amazon and did all the things that you do, right? Like the reviews and viral launch and Zon Blast. And again, those things don't exist anymore, but, get to 1,000 reviews as fast as you can, run PPC. And it took off. And now it's like, I looked at a product that I was like, hey, it's in the hobby. I need it for myself. And I'm like, nobody makes it. So then I made it. And I figured other people would want it too, because it makes sense. And so starting that, and it was more like you order a couple and then you sell it and you order a little bit more and then you try it on Amazon. And, it's it was a lot slower. Like the trajectory of Run Forever was like, I think my first year I did $750,000. With my new brand, I think the first year I probably did like $10,000. And then the second year I did like $20,000. So it was like the trajectory is very, very different. And even the work behind it, it's like I felt like now I put more work into it from a time perspective for less results. And with Run Forever, kind of Amazon did all the heavy lifting, really. But the difference is with this one, even though the trajectory is slower, I feel like the foundation is 10 times better. right? Like I go back and I look at Run Forever now, and prices, they're like down to like $5-6 a unit. The brand itself is probably not really, has no loyalty. It's not really getting anything. It's just kind of there on Amazon, and people buy it because it ranks well and has lots of reviews. Whereas people buy my stuff now because they love the brand and there's loyalty. And there was some place I heard where like to make a brand successful, you only need like 1,000 people who just love it, diehard fans, and that's your like, then you're set. And so I feel like Run Forever may have had a couple. Current brands got hopefully about, probably not 1,000, but get closer, right? Every day. So I think that's really the biggest difference is sometimes it's like, what are you looking at? Are you looking at short term or long term? Plus like the learnings, right? You learn more when you're out in the world and you're doing it, and you're seeing other people who are also injecting wisdom in you. Cause a lot of times people are like, hey, can you do this? And I was like, oh yeah, I don't know. There's a product idea, right? Whereas with Run Forever, I kind of just had to Google Amazon and be like, what's going on here? What are my competitors doing? So I felt like with Run Forever, I was always behind. Whereas now I feel more innovative.
All right, I want to talk a little bit of strategy that you're doing at your current company. But before there, let's just talk about your history with Helium 10. For those who didn't hear the last episode, I mean, Mitul's been using Helium 10 longer than me, and actually played a role in me discovering Helium 10, where, he mentioned this Zon Blast. It was a company, but then there was this Zon Squad community that we were in. It was kind of like Helium 10 Elite, like the Illuminati mastermind where people would pay a lot of money, and we had the private Facebook group. And I remember I used to use this like keyword tracker that was just absolute garbage, or it was pretty good, then became absolute garbage. And I remember putting a post. I was like, hey guys, I need a new keyword tracker. Anybody have any recommendations? And he replied, hey, have you tried Helium 10? And I was like, I never even heard of Helium 10. And then that was the rest is history, as they say. So, he might need to get like a percentage of my paychecks I've been getting. I think that might have helped. It wouldn't have helped pay his $500,000 because I don't make as much money as people think I do. But what has been over the years your favorite use cases for Helium 10 where you feel that you got the most value out of?
Cerebro. Really, for me, it's been that, like, just being able to pull ACE keywords by an ASIN level, because there's nothing else on the market that does it. There's a lot of things that pull like SQP data, which is great, but there's times where there's those like long tail keywords that you don't know. And then on top of that, you're able to pull competitors and kind of see where they're at, right? Like there are times where I'm like, man, where are they ranking? What are they doing? And I'll discover keywords and I'm like, I didn't even think about that. And so that's kind of the biggest thing for me.
And then being able to take that time machine, for the Cerebro back, like, all right, here, great. This is what they're doing now. Yeah, maybe a couple of tools out there might do that. But then, hey, we've got, what's coming up here? Thanksgiving is coming up for this Thanksgiving gift basket. If you were to try and do research on that now, even the regular Cerebro, you're not going to find much because the Thanksgiving gift baskets aren't even for sale right now. But hey, in Cerebro, you can actually say, hey, what was happening when is Thanksgiving? November? Yeah. What was happening in November of 2025 and 2024 and see, what keywords. And so, yeah, like Cerebro was how I fell in love with Helium 10 after the keyword tracker, of course, for sure too. Now, thinking about your current business model where you guys are buying inventory and then running on your own account. So first of all, you've got all the fees and the margins and stuff that a regular brand would have, who's a private label. But then I'm thinking like, for sure, you guys aren't doing price wars because you had to purchase this inventory from somebody else who had to have enough margin to even sell to you. And so the fact that you guys can do this at scale to me shows you might have some like unique strategies, because there's people who don't even have that middleman kind of thing and still are struggling to make profit. So what has allowed you guys to be able to still make money in this 2026 world where everybody says, oh man, I can't afford to sell on Amazon. They're taking all my money.
Yeah. So we have to be very efficient and we have to think outside the box. So there's a lot of tools that we have that we're forced, right? Like we struggle and we get stressed and we have to learn, right? It's just natural. We deal with a lot of Chinese competitors, and a lot of times we lose because we are higher price. We can't do the thing where we get close to them. We're, for example, we sell a $700 juicer, and you can get a $100 juicer on Amazon. So it's like, how do you fight that? And so
What's the answer?
So one is lots of advertising off of Amazon. No, but there's that off Amazon advertising is huge. I will die on a cliff. It's if you're not doing off Amazon marketing.
Like, well, what's the best ones to do?
So for what I see, obviously Meta and TikTok. Those are the two, like, they're just, they cause your brand to go bonkers.
When you say TikTok, do you mean TikTok advertising or like doing the TikTok influencer thing where you try and get some product out and have creators make videos?
So I've seen multiple ways. So I think there's a couple of ways you can be successful on TikTok. One is TikTok Live. Actually, we just ran into a competitor and we're trying to figure out how are they selling so much. All they do is TikTok Lives. Then there's the people who they go and get the creators, the people who are doing that and they run ads on it. And then there's others who are just their founder videos. It's only on their account. So I think that's the kind of cool thing about TikTok is you can kind of fit it to your personality. Like if you're the type of person who likes to be in front of a camera and you can do it, you can be successful. Or if you're the type who doesn't like me and want other people to do it, you could still be successful. So I think that's the kind of cool thing about TikTok. And I did read recently, like you have to also think of TikTok as just a marketing channel, not a profit center. Well, at least if you're thinking about TikTok Shop, but that overflow is huge. And so, so we have some brands who do well on TikTok. A lot of them are more Meta, Instagram, advertising. There are some that are heavy in retail. And so that helps. And then some of them do like QVC, HSN. Those are massive. Like
you see big, like when something goes live there, then you see that halo effect on your Amazon.
It's huge. And I think it's basically just who knows your brand and how much visibility do you get, right? Because, and I do this myself now. I'm like, if I'm buying things on Amazon, like I bought a phone charger. There's so many Chinese brands out there, and it's like I'm like I don't trust any of them. And then I see Anchor, which, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So now all my stuff is Anchor, and it's not because they are different from the other ones. There's just trust. And so I think the more visibility you have on your brand, the more trust you build, and that helps a lot. The other things we do is we double down on optimization, main image optimization. We had one product where we finally cracked the code and sales increased 40%.
By changing the main image.
Yeah.
What did you do to the main? Or did you like start experimenting using like PickFu or something like that, and then found something that really worked, or like what? Did you have a formula that
you can use PickFu? I think there's a couple other ones that do it too. And what we would do is we would try and just learn what resonated with customers, and then we test it, and we just keep changing it. And we were like, literally, we would just stare at the listing for hours and be like, what are people looking for? And then you look at the reviews, and eventually it like kind of popped out. It was like leak proof. So it's a product that you travel with in planes and stuff, and you put perfume into it. And one of the things people complained about with the Chinese competitors was that it leaked, and ours didn't. And so I was like, we got to double down on that. And so that's what we did. And we just put that in the main image, and sales jumped.
Was the metric that drove it click-through rate?
I think it was click-through rate, and then just also conversion rate, because we didn't really lean into leak proof on the infographics as much, and so I think that's the key thing too, is when you're battling China, you have to figure out what is it that people are actually wanting, and do you provide that solution? So not always easy, but it took us like 8 months to figure it out, right? So it's not like just run a program and I'll know the answer. It's lots of testing.
What are you doing now? And by the way, guys, when he says the hobby, we're still talking about like the sports card and card hobby and Pokemon. Speaking of that's like I'm going to ask you like what your current what are you doing for fun in it? Like, are you still doing breaks? I remember you and Brandon back in the day would getting these football breaks and getting these Joe Burrow cards and grails and stuff that some of them have completely tanked in price. So I hope you sold them by now. I mean, I had a whole bunch I got in those days, like some Zion Williamson cards that just have completely tanked and stuff. But anyways, like, what are you doing now for the fun part? What are you doing for investment? One of my main things, I made tons of money on investing in a player. You remember when I was in that group talking about Ohtani, and I talked about cards I got for $100. One of the cards I got for $100 when I was in that group, I have on eBay right now for $8,000, and I'm easily going to be able to sell it, by the end of this year. And so that's one way of investing. But that's almost kind of like what he was talking about before, the gambling. Like nobody knows how great a player is going to be. You can have some ideas. So that's one thing I'm not doing much of that anymore, but I am big into Pokemons, the Japanese Pokemon, which I was way back in the day with my dad. But what I do now is every 2-3 months, I go to Japan. I buy about 5 to 10 hobby boxes. And what I'm finding is even if they're not like something that goes viral, year over year, it doubles every year that I hold it. And how many things can you do that's literally a guaranteed ROI of you're just getting your money back year over year and you keep doubling it. So that's like how I'm doing like the business side of it. Cause I'm honestly, I'm not passionate about Pokemon. I'm passionate about like basketball cards and stuff like that. But what about you? What are you doing for investment now or for the hobby part of the hobby?
Yeah. So I buy, I got into Pokemon about 2 years ago before the boom, with my daughter. And so we collect Charizards, Pikachu, and then Eevee is the other one that she loves. So from a investment side, and really like, I learned this in the sports card area where you like lose a lot of money. And I started learning to collect what I liked, because when I looked back at all the stuff that I bought and collected, all the stuff that I liked shot up in value, and all the stuff that I chased because of the hype all fell. So one of the things right now, and I wish I'd done it, was Michael Jordan. I love Michael Jordan. Huge Michael Jordan collection.
Chicago, hello.
And had I only been buying Michael Jordan just because I liked it, my investment portfolio would probably be worth $1 million. But because I bought into Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert, that is nowhere close to.
Hopefully not too much the guy from Miami. What's his name?
Yeah, Tua. Yeah, I've got some Tua. Yeah, Justin Fields. So it's like there's things you do for investment. I don't think sports cards or even Pokemon is something you should do for an investment. But the way you're doing it is smart because you're keeping it sealed. But yeah, I say buy what you like, so at least you can enjoy it. And then if it goes up in value, great. That's my opinion in terms of like Pokemon sports card. I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say I'm completely wrong, but again, we're also in a massive like hype right now where everything is 10x'd over the last year or two. So
yeah, my other strategy, I didn't mention it, was there is a thrill of that gambling aspect when you do the breaks and stuff, but it is not a good way to spend money. But so the way I kind of make it where it's a little bit more to my favor is now I get in the breaks for mainly baseball and then some basketball, and I go for the teams that have Japanese players. And then that's what I do to fund my Pokemon and my trips to Japan is I invest a lot here, maybe $1,000 or $1,500, and maybe I hit some, maybe I don't. But either way, I'm getting like cards that I can sell in Japan for double what they are worth here. So what I'm buying it for is not very much here because I'm doubling my money, and now I got the cash to go buy the Pokemon cards. And then I also have another, and I'm giving out my strategy here, but I figure not many people can go to Japan like 6 times a year like me. But there's a lot of foreign players in Japan. In other words, like Dominicans and players who played in MLB and stuff like that before. So they were nobodies before, maybe only minor leagues. Maybe they had a Bowman draft card, from before, but they never even hit the major leagues. I just invest heavily in these cards that are like $1, $2, $3, sell them for $10 because they have diehard fans. They're superstars. They became superstars in Japan. And so that's my other way of doing it. But again, it's fun. The whole thing is fun. Even if I wasn't making money, just being in the hobby is fun. And so like, I've always tried to tell you guys, like, maybe it's not, basketball cards, but have something on the side that brings you joy to that somehow still kind of ties to e-commerce, and you get like the best of both worlds.
Yeah. I forgot to mention. So I do card shows. That funds my hobby too. Because the nice thing is I get to buy cards at discount, because obviously you're a vendor, you're paying to be there. So you buy it like 70, 80%, things like that. You do trades and stuff like that. So a lot of the cards that I have now, I get through trading and through buying, and the profits that I make, I'm able to reinvest that into more Pokemon. So that's kind of the nice thing too about, kind of building a business out of your hobby, is then you can fund the hobby with your business, but you also have to be careful. Because I was talking to my friend who also is in the hobby, and he got to the point where, if I remember correct, I think it was him. I forget if it was him or someone else, where it became too much of a business and it sucked the fun out of it. So you also have to be careful with that.
That's what you got. Completely side note here. I don't remember if we were ever in a fantasy football league together, but I was getting so heavily into fantasy football, it sucked the fun out of football, because then my teams that I liked, I was rooting against them because I had players from the other, and it was like, no, this has ruined it. So yeah, I do know what he's talking about. Like sometimes you can have a hobby and it can actually take the fun out of it if you make it too businessy. Anyways, couple things. If people want to reach out, find out, your company again, give the links, and then if people who might be in the hobby here and want to know what you're doing, and maybe see if it's something that they want to get into and they want to reach out to you privately, how can they find you on the interwebs?
So I'm on Facebook, Mitul Patel. Yeah. And I'm friends with you on Facebook. So if you're friends with Bradley, you can peruse his friend list and find me. Yeah. And then the company I work for is Navira.
I spell it
Navira. And so we primarily work with, if you want to work with us, shoot me a message if you need someone helping you with your Amazon.
All right. Well, thanks for driving out here. It took an hour, and I went in the wrong terminal. I literally am catching a flight to Zurich in about 30 minutes is boarding. So I better start packing up my setup here. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you in the next one.